You don't get too many do-overs in life, but it appears as if we are in the process of getting one right now. I've talked a lot about how this acquisition process used to be prior to COVID and before technology, where you had to actually meet with people, travel to talk to board members, acquisition targets, professionals, etc. And how, even though COVID 19 has been terrible with respect to the amount of people it's affected and loss of life, how it's been positive in this whole process of acquiring businesses. You don't have to travel as much. In many places, you can't travel. You've had to rely on things like Zoom calls to do things, and you've been able to do this process more quickly. However, it appeared as if we were with vaccines getting to the end of this process. And now the Omicron variant of this appears to be not as affected by vaccines. It looks like it's morphed to some extent. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is, it's too early to tell, but that's what the initial feeling is like. Certainly. Maybe the results of the variant aren't as bad in terms of the symptoms. But take a look at what's happening in the U.S. now. We're going back in many places to lockdowns. We're going to go back to canceling holiday get-togethers. At least that's a recommendation in a lot of places. So to my opening comment, in a lot of ways, unfortunately, for health, but not for this whole acquisition process, we're back to a point at which if you haven't moved as fast as you wanted to move, you can get a do-over. You can go back and say, okay, what didn't I do? How could I have done it differently? And let's start again. You're still going to have the ability to use Zoom to meet people, to gather a board, put it together, and be able to do that. And there's a lot that we don't know. One of the things, deer hunting season ended recently up here in Maine. One of the things I saw, which I thought was just a conspiracy theory when I first heard it, was that in Iowa, 80% of the deer that they sampled had COVID-19 coronavirus. Well, how does that happen? If it's like it is in Maine, you don't get within 6 feet of a deer unless you get lucky enough to get a deer. So how did that happen? And is it spreading more? Certainly the Omicron variant is spreading much more quickly than other variants. The viruses aren't smart, but they do adapt and change and mutate, and we're in the process of seeing that. So now we're back to talking about you need a booster. Now we're back to talking, well, maybe we need a new vaccine to be able to handle this. So again, you have an opportunity to essentially do a do-over. So what I would suggest is you're at the end of a year, basically. Sit down, think about what happened this year, think about what you want to do. Sit down and write your obituary. That oftentimes is sobering. And make a plan for next year. And if you don't know how to do any of that, go over to brucewhipple.com. There's plenty of material there, some free material. The boot camp that I recently did takes you step by step. And there are some openings, few openings for group coaching, and the 2 openings on the VIP program. So those will fill fast. They're already in the process of being filled. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. Treat the past as the past. If it hasn't worked out as you want it to, your past does not have to dictate your future. You can learn by it, you can make changes, and you can have a chance here to essentially have a do-over. So I would encourage you to think about that, take some action, and move in the direction that maybe you didn't move last year, but you have a chance to move this upcoming year.